This Lee Etude number 5 in A minor is very much a bow control exercise in something of the opposite way that the dot tower is. Make sure that you are saving your bow at the beginning of every large slur, slur big or small in this, so that the phrase can always have room to expand. You see that I'm only out here once I get to the middle, which is this the high C. Even if the phrase is diminuendoing, actually, it's a good idea to still use this trick so that it never sounds cramped by the end, but just you're in control of making it quieter. Another thing that you can notice I'm doing, I'm giving a small accent to the quarter note in measure 1, both with the bow speed and with vibrato. I think this actually helps a lot to bring out more of a character in the music. Doing without, it can still work, but it just kind of elevates it that much more, I think. Feel free to let your bow usage go a little wild once the slurs start happening by the half measure, not the full measure. Places I'm talking about are measure 30 and 31, and then become much more common in measure 36. The real reason you want to do this, not only so that the sound can become more expansive, but if you are not really thinking about it and you're still using or saving your bow the same way you did in the beginning with the full bar slurs, you might run into trouble on the up bows in particular. So and again, it just allows for a lot more control happening in the phrasing. Another way of saying that is just make sure you're using your full bow as often as you can on these larger slurs. Keep in mind that just like in the dot tower, your dynamic range here is mezzo forte to forte. Really exaggerate that. Mezzo forte can mean just about anything in terms of just quieter, and forte can really hit some different points. I think a great example is the beginning, which you shouldn't be blasting really. It has a lot of room to change, and then measure 36, where you start slurring by the half bar, that forte to me should be quite a bit more. Also keep in mind that there's a lot that's not printed in here that I actually find very problematic in a way in terms of how I would interpret it and also what I would find to be appropriate for an audition. In the beginning, of course, it's a very melodic etude, and it has a lot of room to grow and come down. There's a very clear phrasing, basically. You can hear the hairpin between the first two bars, the third and fourth bars, and then the low point on the low E in measure 5, and then the high point in measure 7 on the high F. All of this just seems very intuitive in terms of phrasing, but again is not printed. One final thing that I find equally difficult is the very ending. You don't have a dynamic printed from measure 60 all the way until the end. It's a long time and a lot of things that are just seem left open to interpretation. I interpreted this as meaning play very loudly at the end, but I could also very easily hear this being played very quietly. And again, I find that appropriate in terms of what to do in an audition. A few fingering notes in this one. In measure 5, there's a 3, extension 1, extension 3. I find this uncomfortable in my hands, though I think I played it this way. If you are also struggling with it, maybe even if your hands are smaller than mine, that's okay. You can shift to the 4 on the E, and then either shift to 2 on F or stay there. It's up to you. Just make a decision there and commit to it. Don't keep guessing about any fingering up until the audition day. Measure 8, I would play the G sharp with 4th finger, play 1st finger on the F and slide very, very carefully slide back to the E. You want this to be mostly very, very clean. Measure 21 through 22, just a quick note about that. Use the rest here to shift a half step down from the F to the E, and make sure that you are tapping your 4th finger down so that that shift comes across very clean as well. In measure 36, this is another one that I had a lot of second thoughts about as well. It's because this phrase is repeated so much. I think it can work at a slower tempo, or maybe if the slur happens in a different place. But to me, it got very sloppy the more and more I practiced it. So I think I wound up just shifting in the bowing break. So I could hide the shift, otherwise it just sounded very sloppy. So with that, that's all I have to say about this etude. It can be very beautiful, assuming you put some time into it to really make the phrases sing, but just be careful about what you feel is appropriate in an audition setting. So I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.